Hi, are people able to hear me as well as see my screen? Please respond on chat or question paper panel if you are able to see my screen as well as hear my voice. Great, thank you for confirming. So thank you for joining the webinar. And so we have important topic today, which is how to apply design thinking in automation, being delivered by Vaibhav Sharma. He's a design thinking expert and an AI enthusiast at our self-study lab in Gurgaon. So he will be taking us through the criticality of design thinking and automation. So both design thinking and automation are in thing these days, and a lot of companies are applying design thinking. So he said that we should be addressing this topic. So I would like to transfer the controls to Vaibhav. Are you ready?
Yes, sir, I am.
Sure. So I'm transferring the controls, and meanwhile, audience, this is the right opportunity for you to ask any possible questions you may have. And this session is being recorded and will be made live on Self-Study YouTube channel. I'll be sharing the link for the same in a few minutes. Uh, you can ask questions in between, and we'll try to answer them, all of them, towards like then and there or towards the end of the webinar.
All
So,
right.
Weber, all
Uh,
yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vishal, sir. Okay. Just very quickly mention me yes or no in the chat if you can hear me. I mean, you will send your chat to organizers, and panelists per se. So just let me know if you can see and hear me, as well as see my screen.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, great, thanks. So at the first instance, thank you, Vishal sir. I'm not sure if Vivek sir is on the call or not, but big thank you to him for this entire Strat initiative. It's really godsend for anyone who is interested in learning about data sciences and learning about machine learning and learning about deep learning and thinking about carving a career in this particular field. And thank you for this opportunity. So a quick introduction about myself, guys. As Vishal mentioned, I'm a design thinker and I'm an AI enthusiast. I'm currently working as a senior product manager in a startup by the name of Benefit Wellness. We are primarily into fitness, and we are designing fitness-related solutions for gym owners as well as gym goers, the fitness enthusiast. I have close to 18 years of industry experience, which has been. I started my career as a in a technical role as a software developer, and then moved to the ranks to be a technical manager, a scrum master, a project manager, a product owner, an agile coach, and now working as a product manager. So, well, today's topic is really interesting, and we are going to talk about design thinking. So, Vishal sir, is there any way possible our audience can reply to me on chat? I mean, can we have chat open for everyone? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so everybody can respond to chat. So I'll just send a message to all, and they can respond to that.
All right, great. Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as you receive the message, oh, here it is. Vishal has already sent it. Great. So my first question to you is, what is design thinking? What do you understand by design thinking? I mean, I'll take a. Okay, even before you start typing, let me step back a little. Have you heard about design thinking before this talk, or before you read about the topic for today? Yes, no. I'm waiting to see some responses in the chat. I hope I see them.
So it seems chat is not coming through, but on question panel, people are responding. Yes, they have heard about it. They understand.
Okay.
Uh, one of them is saying automation of what? Is it DevOps or something else we are talking about?
Okay, so that's the question. What is design thinking automation of? Is it DevOps or something? Interesting question. I'll address that. I'll address that. Okay, so I think most of you have heard about design thinking. Can anyone through chat or through question answer panel, answer me? What do you mean by design thinking? What do you understand by design thinking?
So thinking before you design.
Thinking before you design. Okay. So
And
glad to know there is
organization
something.
of solutions.
So, so I mean, just going a little deep into that answer. Glad to know that we also have a field where you design without thinking. Interesting.
Somebody is saying
So
organization of solutions.
the organization of solutions. Okay, that's interesting. Hmm. Any other
Making
responses?
making products produced easily usable.
Making products produced easily usable. Okay, okay.
If we would
Let me
have considered, we wouldn't have seen product failures.
sorry, say it again.
If we would have considered, we wouldn't have seen product failures.
We wouldn't have seen product failures. Okay, so you feel the product failures are the ones where the creators haven't thought before creating them. Amazing, amazing. Hmm.
Strategy, last one, strategy to
Just
tackle future problems.
sorry, say it again.
Strategy to tackle future problems.
Strategy to tackle future problems. I mean, why bother about problems in future when we have enough problems to solve now, to solve today? And just moving back to the previous comment, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. Uh, why is it that companies have successful products at one time and the same companies have not so successful products at the other time? Let's talk about Apple. We know their products are successful of late, or most of their products have been successful. Will we say the same thing about their latest iPhone, the iPhone 11 Max or iPhone 11 Max Pro? It has not set the sales chart burning, right? It's not a failure, but it's not a grand success either. Forget about that. If you go back a little bit in the history, less than but 25 years ago, before Steve Jobs came and started working again at Apple, Apple had launched something called as Newton. Okay, Apple has launched something known as iMac, which were Apple has launched something known as the iMouse, which were okay, but not successful, at least not the kind of success that we look at it. Anyway, so I think these are interesting conversations. I request you to kindly hold on to this, and we'll talk about this again towards the end of this presentation. So let me share with you a little story as such. I hope all of you are familiar with Navy SEALs. I mean, you might not have met them, but we all know about who Navy SEALs are. They are one of the special forces division in the US Armed Forces, and they have been they really became famous when one of the SEAL team carried out an operation to nab Osama bin Laden out of his hideout and capture him and be done with it. Now, what happened? A software team, a technical team, was approached with a problem that these Navy SEALs were facing. And these were the people who were sitting in the control room, who were monitoring the units, who were coordinating with the units. When these units go into the field, they are a team of 6 to 10 SEAL commandos, depending upon the size of the unit. And they have a control room back home through which they are, constantly communicating. And one of the commander in this command unit who is behind, who's sitting in our country, who's sitting at the base location, uh, told to this company that, what happens, my seals are spending a lot of time underwater. Okay. And I'm scared that they are not aware about how much exposure they have got, how their vitals are doing, what is their body signs reflecting. They might have hypothermia. When you stay in water for too long, you develop, your body is not able to keep warm, and ultimately you die. That's the situation with hypothermia. So they came up with something known as, they asked this technical team to design a product, and that product was something like a wristband, like a wrist watch. What this is going to do, this is going to monitor the seal's vitals and relay it back to the control room at the base location, depending on which they can then coordinate this unit, and they can work on this unit. All sounds great, all sounds good. A simple product, something which you're wearing on the wrist, measuring the vitals, and getting the ensuring the safety of your soldiers, of your elite forces. Now, someone in this technical team said, let's do one thing, let's go and talk to the seal. A, it will be really cool to talk to them, and B, we'll be able to understand what is it that what is seal's opinion about them. So with due permission, with all the clearances, everything, they went in and they talked to two of the seals of this unit, and they said that, okay, we are designing this sort of a product. We just want to gather some requirements from you. We just, because you are the one who are going to use it, we really want to know what you feel about it. Do you know what response those seals gave to them? They told them, if you make me wear any wristwatch like this, any wristband like this, the first thing that I'm going to do is, the moment I enter the water, the moment I enter the ocean, I'll just unstrap it and throw it to the bottom of the ocean. And when they asked, why will you do that? He said, well, I really don't want any dude sitting in a AC room telling me to pull out of the mission because my blood pressure is high or my heart rate is high. So this was kind of like a new discovery for this technical team. And then they asked them that, okay, what is it that is bothers you? What is it? Why do you have to spend so much time underwater? We know these SEALs are an elite unit. They can just go in and boom, 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 do their mission and come back as fast as possible. You don't stay too much, when it's a land mission or something. Why do you have to stay so long under the water? That's when they discovered that, what, it's difficult underwater to ascertain our location, where exactly we are, because underwater the GPS doesn't work, right? So these guys said, okay, let's do one thing, let's create a prototype. What that prototype is going to do, it will be again be a wristwatch, but what will this do? Through the loop, this will send a small sensor to the bottom of the surface. Okay, it will calculate the GPS signal and come back and display it onto the watch. This is something that they presented to the SEALs, and they loved it. The product was a huge success. The cost of the solution was less than $40,000 project. You know what was the original cost of the contract? $500 million. If you have followed along and if you have understood the story, this is basically the crux of design thinking. This is basically all that you need to know when you are doing design thinking. I'll come to the story, I'll share other stories with you. I'll keep coming back to this story so as to relate what exactly happened over here. To answer this question, what is design thinking? It's basically a 5-step process. Okay, you start with what? You start with empathize. That's the first step. Then you define the problem. Step 3, you ideate, you prototype, and then finally you test. Let me go into the details of each of the step. Let me go into details of each of this process. The very first step is empathize. What do you mean by empathize? Number one, and how do you do this? Simply put, empathizing with someone is being in their shoes, looking at the world from their perspective. Okay, a very interesting exercise, you can do this as a thought process, as a thought experiment to challenge the limits of your thought is, today or tomorrow, just think about it. Anyone with whom you disagree, could be a colleague, could be a family member, could be your partner, anyone. Pick one person with whom you disagree and try to answer this question: what is it that makes this person think what he or she is thinking to be right? What you're doing here, you're stepping in someone's shoes, you're stepping in their position, you're wearing their glasses, and you're looking at the world from their perspective. It's easier, it's easier said than done, but it takes effort to do that. When it comes to solving problems, when it comes to automation, the moment we hear a problem, the first thing that comes to our mind is, oh, you know what, we need to automate. We need to reduce the steps. We need to automate. We need to make it faster. Are we even thinking from the perspective of the person who is going to use this automation, or whose job will change once we introduce this automation? Are we even automating the right thing? Are we even automating the right step of the process? How do you learn this? There are just two ways to do that. One is by observations, and second is by interviewing, by talking to your end users. So that Navy SEAL story that I just narrated to you, what is these guys did? They didn't listen to the person who is sponsoring the project, who is paying the money for the project, who is going to offer them the cash for completing the project. No, they went, spoke, and talked to the actual users, the actual Navy SEALs who are going to wear that wristband. They asked themselves, who is my user? Someone who is paying you is not your user. Someone who is buying your product is not your user. Right? A very small example is, you might be going to market to buy some cleaning products. Okay, maybe floor cleaner or something like that. You are the buyer of that product. You're not the user, because assumption is most probably there is either a maid or some domestic help who is coming in and respectfully doing the job for you. So whenever you're designing a product, always ask questions like, who is my user and what matters to this person? Let me ask you this question, and you can reply this to me in chat. I believe all of you have heard about a company called Microsoft. Yeah, the Microsoft that manufacture Windows and MS Office and so on and so forth. How many of you are aware that Microsoft manufactures something known as Xbox? And also at one point of time, Microsoft also manufactured a product called Zoom, Z-U-N-E. So if you know about Xbox, type yes. If you know about Zoom, just separate dash and type yes. So it can be, the answer can be yes, 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 no, no, yes, no, no. I'll just wait for the responses on the chat.
So one gentleman is saying yes, we don't like both. Some are saying yes, 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 no, no, no.
Yes, no, 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 yes, yes. Okay, as expected. I mean, whether you like them or not is a different story. I'm not here to come up with a sales pitch to buy anything, and neither Microsoft is paying me anything to conduct this session. Unfortunately, no. See, Xbox is a very popular gaming console. Okay, now there's a story behind Xbox. You know, when was Xbox introduced? When Sony has already launched PS2, PlayStation 2. It was a roaring success. Their PlayStation 3 was almost about to hit the market. And in fact, before Xbox was released, it hit the market. They had this huge competition against them. They didn't have the early movers advantage. And Microsoft was not first to the market when it came to game consoles or something. They had a huge competition. Sony had a huge market share as such. Still, Microsoft Xbox was a great success. You like it, you don't like it, you buy it, you don't buy it. That's immaterial out here. We are talking about the sales volume. On the other hand, Microsoft came up with something known as Zune, which was a portable music player in competition to Apple's iPod. This was a failure. Okay, this was actually a failure. And you won't believe this. Surprisingly, you won't believe this. Surprisingly, the team behind Microsoft Xbox and Microsoft Zune was same. In fact, it was the success of this team on Microsoft Xbox that to prompted Microsoft to choose them to be on Zune project itself. Yet one was a success, another one was a failure. You know why? Simple reason. Strange as it might sound, but the answer was very simple. Why so? This team could empathize, could relate much more to a gaming community. They knew as a gamers what they wanted. They knew as a gamers what will attract them to use this product. They knew as a gamers what will they do to play on this particular product. These were the questions that were the guiding principles, that were their true north when these folks were creating Xbox. Improbable as it might sound, this same team couldn't empathize or couldn't relate to what they would want if they wanted a portable music player. Probably they wouldn't buy a music player at the first go. Probably they were so much sold out on Apple iPod that they didn't think or consider alternate. The key takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, is more than the technical skills. It's not that it's not that the team was very competent, very technically capable when they were working on Xbox, and suddenly they lost all their technical skills when they started working on Zoom. No, the key differentiator was whether they were able. The key differentiator was that they were not able to empathize with the users of the portable media player, the portable music player, as compared to relating to or empathizing with the users of the gaming console. Now, I'll just pick one quick point and then we'll move beyond, empathize. Generally, people feel that when you're empathizing with someone, you have to agree with that person. The answer is no. I'd like to draw this distinction very clearly. Okay. Empathizing is looking at the world from the other person's perspective. You might not agree to that view. You might not subscribe to that view. Let's take two extreme examples just to narrate this point. And selecting extreme users is a key point of design thinking as well. So I'll just take two very extreme examples, one from history and one from the from our modern times. Let's start with the history. I believe you all are familiar with Mahabharata. Okay. Now, we can all agree with Pandavas. We can all agree with Krishna. Not a problem, right? How many of us can spontaneously agree or naturally agree with Duryodhan? I assume all of you are familiar with Mahabharata. I'm not going to go into details out here, but I'm just picking up this character to highlight the extremeness of a character. So my question is, how many of us can naturally understand Duryodhan or be sympathetic to Duryodhan? Not even sympathize, that's the wrong word. How many of us can actually understand the world from his perspective? Probably very few of us. Naturally, it will take an effort to be in his shoes. Just step in his shoes and see how the world looks to him. Here he is someone who is ambitious, but he doesn't have all the qualities. He has been brought up by a father who couldn't get the kingdom, although he thinks that he deserves it. And now he sees that unless and until I do something, I'm proactive, the history is going to repeat. We do not agree with him. It's just about understanding their viewpoint. It's just about stepping in their shoes and thinking what prompted them to do, or what prompted him to do what he did. So that's the first step, which is empathize. And how do you empathize? By identifying your users and observing them, interviewing them. Moving on. Next step is, define the problem. How do you define the problem? You look at the interviews, you understand what are the actual needs that people are trying to fulfill with certain activities. When you're taking notes, when you're interviewing, take as much notes as possible. If possible, record those interviews, take as much notes as possible. Out of those notes, underline the verbs or underline the activities that people mentioned when talking about their problems. And once you have done that, the whole idea is to express the problem in a human centric form. Okay, transform it from a business problem to a human problem. Let's go through a few examples. When we talk about business problem, what we say, how do we word that problem? How do we frame that problem? How can we increase conversion rates on our site? Right? That's what we want to do as a business. If you look at it from a human perspective, from a human problem, what's the easiest way to help users figure out if our product fits their needs and encourage them to buy it? We're thinking from a user. What's the easiest way to help users figure out if our product fits their needs and then encourage them to buy it? Another example. How can we lower the number of calls to the technical support? Make it a human-centric problem. How can we keep our products from frustrating users? Nobody calls technical support out of their own sweet will. Nobody wakes up in the morning, oh wow, it's a wonderful day. Today I'm going to make 3 calls to Airtel support or 3 calls to my internet support. All right. Nobody does that. You only call the support when you're frustrated with the product that they're providing you, when you're frustrated with the experience that the product that they have provided, which you are using. Right. So if I put it in from a human problem perspective, how can we keep our products from frustrating users? Number 3, how can we grow our core audience? That's the business problem. How can we grow our core audience? From a human problem, how can we satisfy people so they are grateful for our products? Now, I have a small question, and I'll again request you to answer this in the chat. We all know this, right? What I'm talking about here, converting the business problem to human-centric problem is natural, is something we should be doing. Yet, when you're solving problems, when you are designing on the algorithms, when you're thinking about the algorithms, when you're thinking about machine learning, deep learning problems, how many times have you thought about the end user? How many times have you thought about it from a person who is actually going to use your algorithm? If I'm being frank, the answer is, and nothing to be ashamed of, this is something which everyone in the industry does, very, very little. And that was not my question. My question was, when We know we have to solve the problem by being human centric. We have to understand the problem from a human perspective. Why don't we do that? Please take a minute, think about it, and answer it in the chat. Vishal sir, you have to help me out. Somehow I'm not able to see the chat responses.
Nothing is here as of now. Audience,
Sorry?
please respond. I'm waiting for audience to respond.
Okay. I hope they are still with us. We haven't lost all the humans.
Well, I've seen number rising, so I'm speculating they're thinking about it.
All right, let's give them a minute. I mean, not an easy question.
Vaibhav sir, please repeat the question again.
Okay, my question is, we all know that we have to, when we're framing a problem, we have to make the problem human-centric. We have to um, uh, speak or make it from the perspective of the people whom we are trying to help or whom we are trying to solve. Yet, we don't do that. Why? What's the challenge? Or what do you think is the challenge?
One response is we all focus to develop things in the right manner rather than right things. More focus on sponsors rather than users.
Yes, that's my question. Why? That's true. What you're saying is absolutely correct. That's true. My question is why?
Accessing user base directly is difficult. Contracts and systems are built like that. Maybe
Mhm.
take so many assumptions while designing that product, or we tend to look inwards than outwards. Other one is we are focusing to develop things. Yeah, that was done. So no other responses.
Okay. So, this is the common answer that we get. Getting access to user base is difficult. I mean, I agree to an extent, yes. If you're talking about going and talking to the, direct people or direct, excuse me, if you're going and talking to, uh, 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 people directly, your end users directly, then yes, it's not easy. It's difficult. It's something that you have to solve for. But if you think about it, this is something which you can solve quite easily to an extent. I mean, not 100%, but to an extent. Think about any domain that you have. You have forums, you have communities, you have today, you have Reddit. In this age of internet, you have something known as Reddit, where people come and discuss all sort of problems, all sort of issues that they are facing, and nobody is stopping us from going there and reading those. Yet we want to take the easy route, and those are our excuses. The real reason is twofold. One, you might not realize it, but during our day-to-day event, during our day-to-day life, we become so used to taking shortcuts. We become, so used to workarounds that we don't even realize that we're using a workaround. I can give you a number of examples, right? Something very basic. Many times what happens when a switch is not working, what are we doing? We switch it on. If it not works, we press it a little harder, right? It's irritating at first, but within a day or two, we become so habitual that when you're switching it on, we are actually pressing it as we switch it on. It becomes part of our muscle memory, part of our actions. Point number one. Another example. How many times it has happened that something was not right with your equipment, with your chair, with your office desk, maybe your laptop, maybe your keyboard or something. And you know, in India, we have a very famous word to define this, known as jugaad, right? We use some sort of, you know, jugaad, and we, which is a fancy word for workaround. We use some sort of a workaround, and we manage to do that. We never get it fixed unless and until the problem becomes so unbearable that there is no other way but to get it done. Now, I'm not saying doing workaround is bad. The point that I'm trying to make is it becomes so inherent, it becomes so part of our life, so part of our routine, that we don't realize that, you know, we are actually following a workaround. Let me ask you this. Before, I hope all of you have seen those days, you know, where we didn't have, you know, Uber or Airbnb or Swiggy, you know, in our lives. I mean, these things are just 3 years old phenomena, if I'm not mistaken. How many of you felt that, hey, you know what, we need something like Uber here, we need something like Swiggy here? If someone would have, you know, come and asked you, sir, what do you want to better your city's taxi services? My response, anyone else's response would have been, hey, you know what? They should be cheaper. I should get them when I want. That's it. Nobody could come up with something known as an Uber. The point that I'm trying to make is, the thing with this human-centric problems is the needs at times are so latent that even the actual users don't know what their problem is, unless and until you observe them, unless and until you observe them and see what they don't see, unless and until you listen to what they're not saying. Which sounds difficult, but it takes practice. And you know, this is the exact phenomena which prompted the you know, Harrison, the owner of the founder of the Ford Motors, that if I had asked my customers what they want, they would have told me a faster horse. Second is, generally with humans, there is just not functional need. There is just not functional need. There is an emotional need also. We call it cognitive need as well. A classic example is Lenovo versus Apple. Okay, Lenovo is the functional need, yet still people buy Apple, an expensive machine at almost the same specs or even comparative specs. Why? There's an emotional need to it. So, and these things take practice. These things take time. Our tendency is to jump quickly to the solution. Okay, we have to automate this. What algorithm? What language? How do we have to think through this? What is Facebook doing? What is the latest algorithm available? How can I apply what I just learned, you know, last time? How can I practice more? How can I impress others? Those are our thoughts. Pretty normal. I mean, nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone goes through this, and that's basically what's the key point of this session is. Think from the end user, empathize with your end user, and if you empathize with your end user, then what you do, you define the problem. Define the problem from the perspective of the end user. You don't have access to end user, think harder. They are all around you. You're bound by contracts and everything. You don't have to be explicit. Talk to them about their life. You don't have to talk to them about your solution. That's what contract is for. You not disclose your solution. Contract is not, you will not ask anyone what their problem is. Okay. Now, once you have done this thing, moving on, once you have done this thing, next what you do, you ideate. Okay. Come up with the ideas that solve the problem. Now, again, the point is not to get the perfect idea. Let me be very clear. None of the success, you know, our Hollywood, Bollywood movies try to popularize this solitary genius, person who is just sitting somewhere and he's thinking hard, something happens, something drops, something clicks, something tickles, some explosion happens, God alone knows what. Something happens, and this guy has a flash, and he comes up with the idea to solve the problem. That's a stereotype, and we fall for the stereotype so many times. Many times we are just looking for our eureka moment. Believe me, that's a stereotype. How do you get ideas that are good? You generate a lot of ideas. Can any single idea be a good idea among them? Probably. They might all be bad ideas. But one thing which is for certain is, if you merge few of those ideas, if you I like to use this term, we call it idea sex. If you merge these ideas together, you mingle these ideas together and create something new or create something out of it, that is definitely going to be a great idea to solve it. It might not work, that's for us to decide, but at least it will have the potential to be the solution. Our thing is, whatever the first solution comes to our mind, or whatever first idea comes to the mind, we just start implementing it. And whatever it is, sketch up your best ideas, mind map your best ideas, mind map your ideas, and show them to people whom you're trying to help to get their feedback. Okay, show it to them to get their feedback. Once you have done that, once you have zeroed it down to the idea, what do you do next? You create a prototype. Now, anything which takes you long enough to create is not a prototype. It's not a prototype. Prototype is something which is fragile, which you can't sell, which nobody is willing to pay you for, and you should be able to come up with in no time. Prototype need not be an actual physical product. It can be a sketch, it can be a flow diagram, it can be a sequence diagram, it can be a picture, it can be a sketch on the whiteboard, it can be mock-ups. Okay, many times when you say prototype, oh, now we need to create a working prototype. No, not at all. And as you know, there's a famous quote: if picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. I mean, we can plan this thing with Vishal, some other day. There is another technique or another approach of problem solving which is known as sprint. This has been popularized by Google, where they have a 5-day process of they start with a problem, they come up with a prototype, and on the 5th day they present it to the end users to get their feedback. The time to design the prototype is just 1 day, max 1.5 days, max. So when you're prototyping, the question that you need to ask you, how does your idea fit in the context of people's actual lives? Your solution could be combination of a new idea and what is something being used. Connect your dots, sketch up the final solution, and go build a real prototype that's just good enough to be tested. And that's the last step in the process. Test. Do test your prototype with actual users. They might not like it, which is okay. Don't defend your idea. We value our ideas at times more than ourselves. At times, our ideas become our alter ego, sometimes much more than our ego. We are okay if someone says something bad to us or something nasty to us, but we are raging in anger if someone criticizes our idea. The whole point is, when you're testing your prototype, try to understand what worked, what didn't work. That's the whole point, to learn what is working and what is not working. Go back to ideation or prototype, apply your learning, repeat the process. Design thinking is not a linear process. I mean, take that should be the second key learning from this presentation. Design thinking is not a linear process. It's not you start and you end and that's it. It's an exploratory and iterative process. None of the successful product that you see in the market today was someone had an eureka moment in their bathtub. They came to the office, created something, and went their way laughing all to the bank. No, that doesn't happen in the real life. No way. Nowhere. The Facebook of today is not the Facebook of 18 years ago when it started, or 17 years ago, whatever the time is when it actually started. Right? It's a journey of exploring, prototyping, testing, learning, exploring, so on and so forth. Once you have a prototype that works and solves the real problem, then yes, by all means, you're ready to change the world. Go ahead and open your shop. Let me present you with another story, and then I'll open this session for question and answers. So there was, this design thinking has been popularized by one of the school in Stanford, which is known as design, which is known as D School, to be for short. So one of the batch in this course, there was challenge was given to them that what happened was lot many children in the world died at birth because of hypothermia. What it means is that these babies do not have enough fat on their bodies, maybe due to the mother's diet or maybe due to genetic reasons or whatever. At birth, they do not have enough fat on their body to keep them warm. Okay, and hence they they were not able to survive. The mortality rate was quite high. But when this group started, if you were this group, what is the first thing that's going to come to your mind? Oh, you know what? The incubators are really expensive. Let's see how we can reduce the cost of incubators. What are you going to do? You're going to focus on incubators. So did this group. They focused on the incubators. They see what part we can replace, what cheap part is available, what part is not necessary, how can we make it more basic, and let's reduce the cost of this incubator. Then this group went to Nepal to a hospital to present their incubator to the doctors, because this problem was really prevalent in the countries in the developing world. When they landed in that hospital with their incubator, you know, you would be shocked, as they were shocked to know that this hospital had 20 incubators lying next to each other, all not being used. And these guys were standing with their incubator in front of those 20 well designed, solid, sturdy, state of art incubators. And they asked the doctor, hey, doctor, why, when you have so many incubators, why is it that the babies are dying because of hypothermia? The doctor told them, look, lot many births are happening in the countryside, in the rural part of the country. Over there, mothers are not able to travel. If they're able to travel, somehow keeping the baby warm, if they're able to travel, the maximum they can stay here is for 5 to 6 days. And then they have to go back because they have needs in the village. Their family needs them over there. They can't be here in the hospital forever. Now the whole problem shifted. Now instead of looking at the incubator, they have to look at it from the mother's perspective, doing their research, doing their prototyping, doing their things. The thing that they came up with was a pouch like thing where you can insert the baby. It had some sort of a paraffin like material which you could take out, which you could take out. You could heat them, warm them on a stove, put that thing back in, and the baby will stay warm for 3 to 4 hours. Rinse and repeat. You will be able to keep the baby warm even in rural places where you have very little electricity or something on those sorts. Now, when they created this product, they again came back, and they came back to India. They said that, hey, you know what? And this was speaking to the mothers, midwives, nurses, doctors, so on and so forth. And then they observed something really different. They were explaining the process to the women, and they told her that, when so they had an LCD panel, something like you have on digital thermometers, an LCD strip. So they told them that, hey, you know what, ma'am, when you have to heat this, when the temperature is at 37 degrees centigrade, 37 degrees centigrade, like you see in the thermometer, just switch it off and put it onto the put your baby inside this, or you can change it for your baby. What this lady told them was, she became a little skeptical, and they could sense it. They asked, what's wrong? Did we say something wrong? She says, no, generally we feel that, allopathic medicines, Western medicines are really strong. They are really strong drugs. So if doctor tells us to give 5 ml to our babies, we'll only give 2.5 ml because we believe it's, too strong. So if you ask us to heat it up to 37 degrees centigrade, most of the females will heat it to just 20 or 17, anywhere between 70 to 20 degree, anywhere between 70 to 20 degree Fahrenheit, my bad. This was another insight for them. What they did now, instead of on that LCD panel, instead of showing the numbers, when the temperature was just right, what they did, they simply mentioned that all that LCD showed was the word okay, that yes, this is ready. Finally, the product was accepted. They were featured on a television show where one of the mother of Bangalore, who had lost her three previous children to hypothermia, said, "This product is amazing. If I had it before, I would have been able to save those 3 children as well." That is the power of design thinking. On that note, I'd like to end this session. I am open to questions. Any questions, anything you would like to ask, you want me to repeat or elaborate upon, I'm all here. Please put them in the chat or in the answers window.
Thank you, Vaibhav. So it was great and good examples. I was trying to listen to attentively, but a lot of distractions were coming in between. So, audience, if you have any
Just give
questions,
me,
this is the time.
just give me 1 sec. I'll just plug in my battery. Okay, I just realized I'm running out of
Sure.
battery. Just give me one quick sec. Okay, but instead of keep asking, keep firing those questions. Yeah, Vishal, do we have any questions?
So some people are saying great session and thank you for the talk.
You're welcome. I'm honored. Thank you. Okay, so one question that I understand, how about automation part of this topic? Yeah. So see, the whole point is this was not about teaching you to how to automate. That is something which many more capable people than me, much more capable people than me, keep on covering in these sales start sessions per se. The idea is what should be your approach towards automation so that it's actually useful to the end users. It's actually it's something which is of value to the end users. You automate something and then you discover users are not just using it for XYZ reasons, could be insecurities, could be you've not solved the relevant problem. How to avoid that situation in the first place. Okay. Okay. How to apply design thinking when startup is the idea of is excellent. Design thinking is meant to be used in startups. So identify your users, two, three, four, five of them. As much as you can, identify your end users. Start interviewing them. Start talking to them. Observe what they don't show you. Listen to what they don't tell you. Understand the emotional need. Understand the emotional connect. Frame the problem. Define the problem. Okay. Define it from a human-centric perspective. Define it from their perspective. Ideate. Come up with ideas as such. Create prototype. Take your prototype to them for them to test it out. Take the feedback, repeat this process till the time you have a prototype which they are happy with, they are willing to use. That's the product which your startup will now be producing. I hope I answered this question.
So any other questions, audience? I'm not seeing any. I'll just put. So, Vaibhav, some follow-up questions are coming to that startup question.
Mm-hmm.
How to talk to them in this time, in these pandemic times?
I mean, a start with forums. Okay, like I'll give you my example. We are into fitness industry. I can't go to every gym to speak with every user. What I do is, I mean, before this pandemic started and all that, before this lockdown and all this stuff happened, I used to constantly speak to the users at my gym, the personal trainers at my gym. Once this lockdown happened, I now reach out to forums. I now reach out in news. I now reach out to popular websites, YouTube videos where people are describing their fitness journey, describing their challenges, describing the issues they are facing, asking questions about exercises, about fitness regime, about nutrition, so on and so forth. That gives me lots and lots of insight. So yeah, even in this lockdown, you can always reach out to people. All right, look around you. Who are the people around you? Can you find anyone who is going to use your product? Please understand, you might have very good venture funding or something of that sort. Your first users will be someone close to you, your friends, your family, right? If you're not able to find them, even within among your friends, even among them your family members, then what I believe is you really need to think hard about the product that you are building. I hope I answered that.
If anybody else wants to ask, they have to ask it on chat panel, please. So thank you for the answer is the response.
Great, awesome, glad to help.
So I'll talk to Vaibhav on the topic he was mentioning in between for the next session. Uh, we'll try to do that probably in July sometime because June is completely blocked for us. So any other questions if you have, then you can ask now. So I'm not getting any response, and we are okay. So another follow-up question to the previous question again. But sir, the customer in my case is myself. So how to approach the solution?
Customer is myself. I mean, still everything that I've said applies. Will you be willing to? I mean, imagine that someone else is selling this product to you. Will you be willing to pay to that person to use this product? One. Secondly, honestly answer these questions. How is this product helping you out? What value add this product is giving to you? What problem is this product solving you? Number three, look for more people like you. If your business has to grow, you can't be the only customer forever, right? So you have to look for more people like you. The good thing is, every person you find, at least in the initial stages, your business is growing exponentially. So if you find one more person, you have 100% growth. If you find two more people, you are maintaining that 100% growth, right? So that's how I'll tackle it.
So I think that's about it. Uh, yeah, that's about it. So I would like to close here and thanks Weber for sharing his insights. I've been after him for this webinar for a long time. We postponed it, I think, once. So hope to have more such sessions in future. And thank you, audience, for joining. And keep safe and good night to all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your patient listening. And thank you, Vishal sir, for facilitating this session. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the platform and the opportunity. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Thank you.